He is
Floating,
ready to
seriously.
glow.
The editor of the Weekly Standard, Bill
She's hateful to
Kristol.
me too, Bill. Don't worry about it.
She's nice to me. But there are reasons why she might want to be hateful to you.
Oh, and the chief White House correspondent for Politico, Mike Allen. Okay, we're going to start with New York Times, How Obama Lost America.
Okay.
And Carol Lee's still with us. Okay. So we'll go to Carol with this one. All right, President Obama's approval rating on foreign policy is around 35% in most recent polling. The public isn't necessarily turning neoconservative or pining for days of Bush. Instead, it mostly reflects a results-based verdict on what seems like poor execution, in which the White House's slow response to is of a piece with the Obamacare rollout and various other second-term asleep at the tiller moments. It's a problem of leadership that reflects badly on liberalism but doesn't necessarily vindicate conservatism.
So let's stop there. Bill Kristol, I want to bring you in here. I think you made a great point on this yesterday. This isn't necessarily, I know you'll agree with me, this isn't a validation of what Washington, D.C. Republicans have done over the past couple of years. This is more of a condemnation of Barack Obama's leadership. Not even ideology, just poor leadership.
Not even accomplishments.
I think it is ideology to some degree, but look, most midterm elections are referenda on the president, and this one I think will be a negative referendum on Barack Obama. A lot of D.C. consultants will take credit, and they've done some good things in this cycle, but I was laughing. Everyone's taking credit for Joni Ernst, just been such a fantastic candidate in Iowa. I would say most of the D.C. Republican consultant community, if you can call it a community, most of the sharks, the D.C. consultant sharks in D.C., they liked Mark Jacobs, remember him? Right. He's self-funding businessman. Consultants love a self-funder. Can pay quite a lot to consultants. Can
write big checks.
Write big checks, and he was the guy. Jacobs, a successful businessman. Joni Ernst, who'd ever heard of her? Some state senator. So it's always amusing when the D.C. Republicans take credit for things that they didn't cause.
Do Republicans take over the Senate pretty easily?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm normally a pessimist on these things, but I've been uncharacteristically optimistic for about 2 months, and I continue to be. I think they'll end up with
You said Virginia.
9 or 10. I think they could end up. I think they'll end up.
Real outside shot. If it's a wave election.
They'll end up winning 9 or 10 seats, I think. I think Kansas may lose. It's always fun to lose a state that everyone thought 2 months ago. Incidentally, what did the D.C. Republicans do? They moved heaven and earth to renominate Pat Roberts as the Kansas Republican, who now looks like he's going to lose to an independent. But I would say Virginia, if you want an early surprise, let's see how close Ed Gillespie makes it and could he possibly squeak it out. And I think he could in Virginia against Mark Warner.
All right, before we get to Mike Allen, Carol Lee, is it, if there's a Republican sweep, is it going to be because everybody wants to repeal Obamacare and make all these changes that Republicans were hinging their identity on, or is it something else?
What are you hearing out there when you're reporting?
I think it's just a general dissatisfaction with the way that Washington is working. I mean, the Republicans have an edge because because of the president the Democratic president is in power. I mean, I think what's most interesting to me in the NBC Wall Street Journal poll was that number where 67% of voters want the president to move in a different direction. That's a really big number, and it was the most standout number in that poll, and that includes 47% of Democrats. So either way that things go on Tuesday, the president is under a lot of pressure to make some sort of dramatic change, and I think that's the $64,000 question. Is he going to do that? And history would show you that he's not necessarily a guy who does make dramatic changes in moments like this. But certainly there's a desire in the country for some kind of break in the gridlock in Washington and for the president to move in a new direction.
You're exactly right, Carol Lee. Unlike Bill Clinton, who after he lost immediately brought in Dick Morris. Do not expect Dick Morris to be brought into this White House. Also, 2006, after George W. Bush got shellacked, Don Rumsfeld was out, I think, the next day. Mike Politico is reporting, of course, that the Republican Party's leadership may actually be seeing a tipping point when it comes to its recent struggle against insurgent candidates. This has been the Tea Party versus Main Street Republicans. Looks like Main Street Republicans may have won this year.
Well, that's right, Joe. 4 years ago today, the banner headlines in all the paper were GOP takes House, and Rand Paul was elected to the Senate, and that was an outsider, insurgent, break China class of candidates. The Republicans who are ahead this year, though, are very different, much more, as you say, mainline Chamber of Commerce establishment. The Republicans did this very cleverly, both overtly and under the radar. The party, outside groups, spent big, worked hard to keep out the Christine O'Donnells, to keep out the Todd Akins this year and get electable candidates.
Yeah.
Joe, the most important thing in this story is that Republicans now say they're going to run this playbook in 2016. American Crossroads saying that they're going to push this message of an electable candidate, not just someone who satisfies the
I just don't know, Mark Halpern, if American Crossroads or anybody else can take credit for the Republican electorate saying, you know what, we're just not going to elect dumb candidates anymore that are going to try to redefine rape or say they're not a witch. We actually may want to win the Senate. We may actually want Harry Reid out of power. And I think they have made that decision time and again. And anybody in Washington, D.C. who's a consultant who raises lots of money from dumb rich people, and they're trying to take credit, they should just really go back to how well they did in 2012.
Look, Crossroads did spend some money in primaries, but I think a lot of the credit goes to the Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee, which reached out to these candidates, gave them some training, monitored them closely. Very basic stuff that the Democrats have done for 2 cycles. Bill, my question for you is, you know, Republicans have smartly kept the message on. If you want change in Washington, you got to vote for Republicans. Do they emerge from this, if the Republicans take the Senate, keep the House, they emerge with any issues, any ideas that have a mandate to say to the president, look, we won, and therefore you voters wanted us to do X?
Yeah, I think there's some mandate for some medium-sized changes that they could get the president to sign, some energy legislation.
But if they run on that in a way that the president, you think, will take the message, boy,
well, voters, I don't know if
voters sent a message.
Well, that's really a question for the president. I think you're going to find Republicans wanting to show, maybe more than they should, frankly, but wanting to show they can, quote, get things done. So I think if the president comes to them on energy legislation, modifications in Obamacare, he'd find a more receptive Republican than he might expect. But I just on this point that Mike Allen was making, of course there were some bad Tea Party candidates in 2010 and 2012, but the establishment also gave us George Allen in Virginia, Tommy Thompson in Wisconsin, Connie Mack Jr. in Florida,
Pat Roberts.
I mean, no one, the establishment did not tell Tom Cotton to run in his first term in Congress in Arkansas. They didn't tell Joni Ernst to win in Iowa.
The establishment told Tom Cotton.
Not so. So it's a complicated mess. Look, the truth is, one reason Republicans are doing well, and I've said this before on the show, is the quality of candidates. A lot of younger candidates, not traditional career politicians. It's a mix, and I think it shows incidentally that those who said the Tea Party establishment riff would destroy the Republican Party, they've actually united pretty well in most of these states behind pretty attractive candidates. Cotton, Gardner, Ernst, people like Sass in Nebraska, which isn't a competitive race.
You actually really have seen sort of some of the Tea Party ideas and sort of the Main Street sensibilities merge together, and candidates like Joni Ernst.
But I would say the main thing, I think the media has decided Obamacare doesn't count. If you look at Joni Ernst, the Des Moines Register poll, the top issue for people voting for Joni Ernst is Obamacare. I think both moving towards repeal of Obamacare, but also articulating and setting forward a serious conservative alternative to Obamacare, that is key.
Early on. When the history of this cycle is written, you have to go early on, and you have to look at all of the Obamacare commercials that flooded the early states, drove the numbers of these Democratic senators down. The reason that it's not happening now, but they were smart. They did it in January, February, March, and April, and they drove those numbers straight down, required Democrats to spend a lot of money early. That actually was the smart tactical move of this campaign.
Mike Allen, thank you very much. Bill Kristol, stay with us. Still ahead, it gets physical at a NASCAR race in Texas. What caused Jeff Gordon to confront a fellow racer?
Goodness gracious.
Both of them bloodied in the end. But first, a day before the election. Are Democrats already shifting their focus to 2016? The executive editor of Real Clear Politics joins us next. We'll be right back.
All right.